You found product market fit, but now the systems are cracking. The team needs you for everything. Growth feels like quicksand. The more you move, the deeper it pulls you in. This is the scaling paradox, where founders and operators come to get unstuck. I'm Blake Moseni, and I sit down with founders and operators that nearly burnt out and rebuilt their business to operate without them. If you're stuck in the middle, this is where we fix it.
I learned in my heart and soul, nobody taught me this, how to release someone is I would call them in. Well, first of all, I would go through many steps of coaching and counseling, put it in writing, ask them how they felt, all those things. And then I would call them in and say, today is going to be the best day of your life. And they would look at me and I would say, because I'm going to release you from this position. It's not for you. It's not inspiring your greatness, and I believe in you as a human being. I know that there's something out there for you that is much better than what's happening here.
You've built businesses, you've hit your revenue goal, you've got a team, so why does it feel like it's all on your shoulders? Today's guest, Angelina Galindo, knows exactly why. After 32 years of closing billion-dollar deals, she retired at 46 and reinvented herself as the founder of the CEO Tribe, a confidential group of high-performing founders scaling fast and quietly burning out. For 10 years, she coached CEOs behind closed doors, and the thing that breaks most companies, it's not product, it's not market, it's people. If you're a founder who's hiring too slow, firing too late, and caring too much, this episode is your reset. Welcome to another episode of The Scaling Paradox. I'm so excited to have Angelina on today. Welcome, Angelina.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think before we get into any of the nitty gritty on the notion of people problems and how this operates within different businesses, I think it's important for our listeners to really get a sense of who you are and how you spent so much of your career closing those billion-dollar deals. So it would be great to understand, after 32 years of closing those large-scale deals, why you made the decision to walk away at 46.
Oh, wow. You know, it was time. I had promised myself that I wouldn't do more than 30 years at Chicago Title. So I was 15 years old when I went to work there, and it was supposed to be a little after-school job, and ended up staying and building a fabulous career. So at the age of 46, it was also 2008. And the real estate market went quite soft, so I decided to go on another adventure.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I love the notion of presence and being willing to really lean in on what's taking place in the day-to-day. And I think so often we have all these different devices and things that are buzzing and vying for our attention, that presence and clarity of mind is becoming more and more of a scarcity. It would be good for the listeners to also understand, before we get into more of the details on the topic today, how you started the CEO Tribe and what was the driver behind pursuing that. So as you said, it was a new opportunity of reinvention. You've continued to lean in on diving. What charted you down this path of coaching founders and leaders across industry?
Yeah. So as you've heard, I stayed in a profession 32 years, and I had enough time behind my desk, believe me, and was immersed in the four quadrants of business at a very young age and loved it. Fortunately,
Sure.
Madly loved it. So then I went and hit my passions, which were scuba diving and photography, and as a businesswoman decided to sculpt 4 businesses around those passions. So I did that and realized after about 8 years of traveling the world and literally being wet for 8 years, I decided to pursue my spiritual desires and became a spiritual practitioner through 4 years of study. In those 4 years of study, I found out that this too is business, in so much as business is basically loving people. Every business has people because we have customers. Every business has people because we have employees. right? Every business is people-centric. Even with AI coming on board, it's people-centric. So through my spiritual practitioner training, I was able to really hone in on some very innate skills, but hone in on holding space for when another is moving through trying times. Or celebrating the joys in life. Either way, holding space without judgment. Listening because I'm curious, not listening to respond. And those traits are invaluable in executive coaching.
Absolutely. It's interesting. And I love the connection and the through line around your passions and how you've been able to link some of these different activities to ultimately lead you to the point you're at today in coaching those different leaders at different levels. I'm sure you've heard all sorts of commentary and feedback. And I know, as we've mentioned a couple times in some of the preamble, everything's confidential in the sessions that you have. But looking at the themes that show up across all the sessions that you've had, what would you say is the most consistent breakdown that you see as people are going through the scaling process and the biggest frustration that's brought up in those sessions?
You know, Blake, actually that's easy for me. It really is, because I love to keep things high level and simple. So there's 4 quadrants in business, in every business. My business and yours. One of them is sales and marketing, one of them's finance accounting, one of them's operations, and one of them is culture and people, HR. Okay. So when I sit down with executives and with CEOs, business owners in that confidential setting, I will ask about the 4 quadrants. Generally, because of the trust level that we have built, I don't have to ask. They will sit down and go, I could not wait for my session. You are not going to believe it. This is what is happening. I have a 10-year employee, and it's for absolute sure I spend the most time in my sessions around people problems.
That's so interesting, especially going back to something you called out just a little bit ago, which is the through line of business, whether you are selling products and trying to continue to grow your business, or whether you are a customer purchasing product, it all comes down to people. And commerce doesn't exist without someone providing some sort of service or something providing some sort of service and then something trying to consume it. So logically, it makes fundamental sense. That said, within those 4 quadrants, what are some of the tactical friction points that you see people dealing with on a regular basis around those hiring decisions, those firing decisions? Where and why is there so much angst around those type of conversations where you see people maybe not moving as quickly as they need to on the top talent that they've identified as part of the interview process or someone they've met in the network, or letting go of someone that seems to be dragging down the organization? What's driving that behavior?
You know, Blake, when you asked me to be here and you said that your audience is CEOs, leaders, executives, business owners, they're some of my favorite people because they carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. They're not only responsible for themselves, they're responsible for their executive team and more employees and their customers and their vendors and the community at large. They're expected to give so much, okay? So back to your question about how it all ties in is the emphasis of the CEO tribe and my executive coaching is around the person as the owner, as the CEO. What mindset do you have? If your mindset is that you have a business which is commercial landscaping, okay?
Sure.
If your mindset is all about trees,
Sure.
the mindset of the leader must shift to, I am responsible as a leader to coach and counsel an executive team that is much better in their quadrants than I am, that are brilliant in their quadrants, so that we can create a thriving company. And that's where, when I interview those business owners and I say to them, who's doing your accounting and your finance? And they go, oh, well, it's my wife part-time, or my husband part-time, or my kid part-time. And I say, that's lovely. Do they have a degree? Do they have a background in finance? No, but I trust them. Okay? Possibly that's not the right person in the right seat to create a thriving organization, right? So if we can get and not if, it's when, it has to happen to scale. When the CEO, business owner, the leader, the visionary can get their mindset around the fact that they are not selling a product or a service, they are building leaders in the company, and the leaders and the employees will sell the product and the service. So everybody wants a mentor. When we go back to, the fundamentals of life, people want to be loved. They want to belong. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They want someone to care about them, for the most part. So that mind shift into surrounding ourselves with an executive team that are up for growing and leadership, and then that executive team will relay that mindset to all of their direct reports, and it ripples through the company.
I really appreciate the sentiment that, first of all, the core foundation of human behavior is all the same across all individuals and races, cultures, backgrounds. And I'm sure that has been distilled down through your extensive world traveling that you alluded to earlier on in our conversation. That said, I'm interested as we think about developing people and positioning them for success. How do you know you have a winner, and how do you know you have someone that maybe isn't the right fit for the organization? And I don't want to say a loser, because I think that people have certain skill sets that maybe don't match certain environments, and they could be applied somewhere else and be highly productive. But how are you helping those leaders distill down where and how they should be investing to propel that next generation of leader forward in the organization?
Right. So interestingly enough, when I spent those 32 years building my business within a business, and I would hire, and did a lot of hiring at a very young age, by the way, I would let people know that this is a specialized industry, very high stress, and only 1 in 10 hires make it. And they would look at me like, what the hell? Like, why would I want to take on the stress of the world for whatever it was back then, $16 an hour?
Yeah.
And I said, but when you make it, it's in your veins. Like, you can't get rid of it, right? Real estate ends up in your veins, and I still have it, right? It still curses through me. Is the art of the deal, the making the deal, the loving people, the negotiation, all the good stuff. So I think in every industry, if we as leaders, as the CEOs and owners, are clear with the executive team that we are hiring about what their position is, and then when we bring them in and we give them clear KPIs and we have consistent one-to-ones with them, then we can have a performance-based review with them, right? And this is my favorite question in coaching. Have you allowed your executive to create a success path for them?
Say that one more time.
Have you allowed your executive to create a success path for them? Okay. Now, as the CEO, the manager, the boss, we always know what we're going to tell them what to do. Well, wait a minute. What's their success path? What if you have somebody you've hired with extensive experience in graphic design, and I say, hey, Blake, where do you picture yourself in 2 years? And you say, I'm going to be a firefighter. Since I was a young boy, I wanted to be a firefighter. I am taking fire science. I am studying to be a paramedic. I am on this trajectory, and I'm glad you asked, because I'll give you everything for 2 years, but then I'm gone. Now, I have Success Path, all these resources that I've created that I openly share. Now we know what your trajectory is, and will it work in the company? And it may work. It may work, right? But it's always comes back to that transparent, caring, direct conversation.
Yeah, you know, I really appreciate the notion of transparency and some of the things that you've called out. So you called out ownership. So have said individual own their own trajectory. Where do they want to be? What's their path to get there? You've called out KPIs. So how do we measure the success of said path to actually validate that we're headed down the right path? And then you've called out accountability, which is this idea of, hey, we should be meeting on a regular cadence to actually validate that we are moving in the right direction and that you're getting the support that you need. And I think it often gets discounted, and I've been kind of torn on this topic lately. So first and foremost, let me preface what I'm going to say with everything that you have said. I have a firm belief in, and have instantiated those behaviors in every interaction with every team that I've led. Where I've been struggling on this topic is all of that to me feels like a very servant leader led approach. It's like you are focusing on your people. You're trying to give them the right tools and experiences so that they're going to be set up for success for the long term, more highly engaged employees, more beneficial outputs, et cetera, et cetera. Where I've been struggling with this is when I look at some of the largest companies in the world and where they are from purely from a capitalistic standpoint. So if you look at the Amazons, the Apples, the let's say Netflix in there, and you continue on. I could keep going on down the list of like the FANGs. Generally, the notion is it is not that servant leader sort of experience, and it's very what's the best way to characterize this? Because I want to be careful, because I appreciate and like all of those companies purely from a growth perspective, and I appreciate the founders that are head of those organizations. But a lot of the external media coverage, this is how I'll say it. The external media coverage is they do not actually embody those behaviors. They embody the sense of like, we're strictly about the business. We're only focused on the business results. If you're not performing to the business results, you're out. Versus, hey, where do you want to be? How are you trying to get there? And how are we going to help move you towards that goal? And so that's where I've been struggling, is I subscribe to the notion that you've alluded to. And I've seen great results associated to that. But I also question a little bit of, is the highest level of performance a different set of behaviors that don't necessarily align with some of those foundational things we called out? I'm just interested in your perspective there.
Yeah, and I love this conversation because I love hearing everybody's different lens. So my lens is what you just described, right? The very large companies, the companies owned by possibly PEs, right? Mm-hmm. Who are very focused on a return for their shareholders, correct? Mm-hmm. And may operate their 100,000 plus employee structure very different than the listener to your podcast.
Sure. That's fair.
So what I was thinking is the listener to your podcast is is not necessarily going to subscribe to the formula that a Facebook or a Google has, okay? That their formula can very much be based on growing leaders, and we haven't talked yet about how to release those that are not performing to KPIs.
Sure.
And I think for your audience, that's an area where it's easy to get hung up in, right? And the PE companies don't have any problem in that area. You didn't meet your KPIs, you're out. Right? I don't know how many times they shift you to different seats. I've never worked for those companies. I don't know how many times they do that. I do know, though, because I've sat in conferences over the years, I try and do at least 2 personal development growth seminars for the last 40 years, very different ones.
Sure.
And I have sat in Wisdom 2.0 with the, what's it called? The chaplain. They called him a chaplain with Facebook. So Facebook actually had a chaplain on staff for the employees to visit with. I think that's where one of the Zen Den terms came from, was Google or one of the large companies actually has a room where you cannot bring your phone in. There's meditative music. It's low lighting. So I wouldn't discount some of the things that are happening in the very, very large companies that they are working. But for your audience, I do really believe that servant leadership works. The other side of the coin is that when an employee is identified as doesn't have the desire or the capacity or the ability to create a thriving company, they need to be released. And so the way I learned in my heart and soul, nobody taught me this, how to release someone is I would call them in. Well, first of all, I would go through many steps of coaching and counseling, put it in writing, ask them how they felt, all those things. And then I would call them in and say, today is going to be the best day of your life. And they would look at me and I would say, because I'm going to release you from this position. It's not for you. It's not inspiring your greatness. And I believe in you as a human being. I know that there's something out there for you that is much better than what's happening here. We've had many discussions. For whatever reason, it's not coming together. So I'm happy to help you if you would like constructive feed forward, right? If you would like a letter about your strengths, if I'm going to give you 2 weeks to find a new position, all of those things. So we do it with absolute compassion, but also conviction that as a business owner, our first responsibility is to create a thriving company.
Before I respond particularly to releasing someone, I do want to just call something out that I appreciate in terms of how you responded around the whole notion of we'll call it heartfelt leadership in a capitalistic society. I appreciate the fact that leaders need to ask themselves what company they want to be before they decide on who they want to emulate, and often you look at the biggest companies as the zeitgeist on how you should approach different activities. And when the reality is you're facing different problems because you're at a different stage of growth. And maybe it doesn't over your long term, that's not what you're looking for. And the simple example that I would call out is if you're in a small to medium sized business and you're trying to continue to grow that organization, human capital and that consistency of said individuals is one of the most important things that you can have. And that's important for any organization, but I would say it's especially within the small to medium sized business, because hiring is extremely difficult, and continuing to find talent that could come fill in those roles. So if you have someone that's good, being able to create more stickiness within your organization by showing that you're willing to invest in said individuals, by giving them a roadmap to success that help them achieve their goals and dreams, and providing them the infrastructure to satisfy their life needs outside of work, I think are all things that beg directly to that. So I really appreciate that call out and that whole notion that based off the size of a small to medium sized business, servant leadership is actually one of the most strategic levers you can pull, because it helps insulate the individuals and the, dare I say, resources. And I know a lot of people get frustrated when you say that, but like, human capital is a resource to an organization. But it insulates that to a certain degree. Now, to what you just called out on this whole notion of releasing people, and the thing that popped into my head as you were bringing that up is I've seen something in on one of these social media channels, and it was talking about how if you try to put a frog in a place where a rabbit should be, or vice versa, both of those individuals, and actually better said, it was like if you try to put a fish and give it the responsibility of a rabbit, like the fish is going to fail and the rabbit's probably going to fail if you put it in water, right? And so the whole notion is, are you putting the right individuals based off the right skill set in the right situation? Because depending on the environment, that person, individual, or thing can thrive if they're set up with the right environment, resources, etc. And maybe the work that you're doing just isn't aligned with that. And so I think I would like to get really tactical, because I love this notion of, hey, I'm bringing you in. We've done some coaching activities. This just doesn't seem like it's a match. I'm here to support you in the next chapter of your journey. How do you identify those individuals? I'm not just putting this on you and your past experience, but how have you seen the CEOs or leaders or executives of other companies go about actually identifying those weak links? And is there like a tactical, repeatable approach that can be instituted to help really tease that out? Because I'm going to venture to say that a lot of people in their heart of hearts already know the answer. Like they already know that someone needs to go, but the logic side of their brain needs to get them to a point where they can move and take action. So in a very long-winded way, I'm trying to say, how do you help people know when it's time to release somebody?
Yeah. Once again, our mind is our strongest, most powerful, reliable, easy tool to access. So adopting the mindset around working with people, creating a relationship with people that is not just heart-centered and servant leadership. The employee, the direct report, the executive member has to be 1,000% active in that relationship. So when I said offer resources and success path, no. I would sit down with you, Blake, and say, Blake, what is it that you need? Because you know better than I know what you need. And you might actually, because we've set a foundation, say, Angelina, I've struggled my whole life with being a victim. And I would say, well, that's interesting. What kind of work have you done around it? Are you willing to meet with a coach or a therapist? Because I can tell you, Blake, that so many times when someone fills out a success path and they say, I want to do this and I want to do that and I'll take this course, when you meet with them again 6 months later, they haven't done it. Right there's your answer. You cannot want something for somebody more than they want it for themselves.
I really appreciate that.
Right?
It's like you can't lead the horse to water and make it drink. And
No.
I think there's a quote that is, it's coming in. Give me a second. It's something to the effect of everyone wants to be on top of the mountaintop, but no one wants to take the climb. And it's like the climb is the journey, and it's part of the joy in getting to the outcome. Like that's the only way you celebrate the outcome. And
Yeah.
to your point, so many people aren't willing to do that, and taking a tactical approach and facilitating that is important with the documentation path. How much time investment do you think that takes? Because I can guarantee you people listening to that are like, I'm too busy. I got fires here. I got this there. So what's the investment, and how do you recommend instituting that in different businesses?
Yeah, there's definitely a process, right? So, in the hiring process, hopefully, you as a business owner come with EQ questions. Okay, you've already identified that, let's say you're hiring a CMO, a marketing executive for your company. You've already identified they have 12 years of marketing experience, they know how to work all the programs, they have, da 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 da, right? You've already checked out their the tactical side. Now you need to know their EQ side, their people side, their integrity, their transparency, their ability to communicate, their ability to grow and develop. So there are actual resources questions, which I have, and again, I'm willing to share anything I have. Anything, I'm willing to share it. And they can ask questions around what happened when this problem was presented to you. And the problem can be around an employee maybe being drunk, high, impaired on the job, what decisions were made, all kinds of different things. What happens when a customer tells you that, they've, whatever it is, whatever X is, right? So there are many different, I love asking people, what was your last personal development that you went through? Was it a book you read? What was your greatest takeaway? How do you use those tools every day? Well, I went to a wellness retreat. I just got back from 5 days on top of a mountain in North Carolina, and it was a soul tending wellness retreat. And every tool that was introduced, I've used in my past. But operating out of absolute intention, I wrote down, this is what I will do, and every day, and incorporate. And it literally, some of the things take 60 seconds. So when people tell me I don't have time, you have to invest in yourself.
No, I appreciate that. And I love that call out, especially in terms of the investment of time required is going to yield such higher dividends by creating that accountability amongst your leadership team and creating that culture in your organization. Like there is a unmeasurable financial impact associated to that everyone should be taking into consideration. And so as people are leaning in, I know you talked about EQ questions. One question you called out at the beginning was this whole notion of only 1 in 10 people are going to make it. Are you still interested? It's like a test of how bad or how hard are you willing to chase after something, even if the probability is low. You've called out some notions of how would you react in certain situations. Is there anything else that you tactically would recommend people ask that really resonate with you to draw out who an individual is before you bring them into your company, or even if they're already in your company, to do an acid test to see if they're still the right fit or not?
Yeah, for sure. In fact, I would be remiss if I don't explain what a true, I call them one-to-ones, looks like. So in a healthy company, is where there's transparency and people are allowed to say what they're thinking with compassion. Okay, they're not, there's a way to do this. And a one-to-one is when I say, okay, Blake, we're going to set aside 30 minutes every Friday, 11 a.m. be ready. You're going to speak 80% of the time. I'm going to listen. Here's a form to help you out. Do not come to the meeting without this form completed. Here's 3 questions. Spend 10 minutes in each area. Number 1, what are the victories that you have experienced in the workplace over the last 30 days? Number 2, what obstacles are in the way of you completing your goals, your KPIs, your rocks, whatever you want to call it, right? And number 3, what else do you have to say? Where can you contribute? Where do you need contribution? Blah, blah, blah. And you can make these questions any that you really want, right? And then we actually sit down and I'm like, hey, Blake, what's going on? And I say, you have 10 minutes on that first question. And believe it or not, when I ask people this question, when was the last time somebody sat with you? Now, my sessions with the CEOs are 90 minutes. For 90 minutes and did not have any judgment, was not looking to gain anything from you, just listen to you. When was the last time? I can't tell you how many times. In fact, some people tear up and they say, never.
How do you go about changing that behavior in an organization?
Yeah, one-to-ones are so simple to set up. As the CEO business owner in the small medium business, you shouldn't have more than 7 direct reports, 7 around you in that executive team, okay? And I find a lot of people only have 4 or 5, maybe.
Sure.
So your responsibility is only to those 4 or 5 and to refine the one-to-one process with them. Then those 4 or 5 learn, because trust is the foundation of everything. Doing this podcast with you, there had to be a mutual trust.
Sure.
Okay, trust, and when people ask me to define trust, trust is only 4 words. Proven behavior over time. Okay, it's not that I like you or admire you or my brother knows you. It's a proven behavior over time. So you've created trust in these one-to-ones and taught your executive team how to be transparent, how to celebrate victories, how to maintain growth, what's on the personal development, how are the KPIs, what's happening with our community, with our clients, with our vendors, where are we on the P&Ls, right? Once they understand the beauty and the deep benefit of having a voice, of having the visionary listen to you without judgment, then they can take the one-to-one model with their direct reports. And it starts to flow through the company where people feel that they have a voice. They're being heard. And it doesn't mean you act on every single thing you hear. That would be impossible, right? The bigger the ship, the longer it takes to turn it.
Sure.
So I'm working with $3 billion companies, with executives in $3 billion companies. And I start off with that analogy. And when I sit down with somebody in a 12-person company, I'm like, you are very blessed. You can turn your ship like that.
Yeah, I really love the notion that behavior and leadership activities cascade over time. And it's so important for that leader to take a leading role in setting the tone for the rest of the organization, because how that individual behaves is how the rest of the individuals in that organization will behave. I think ultimately it all boils down to this notion that you have to lean in and invest in your people. And if you invest in your people, the results will continue to show up over time. Obviously, you need infrastructural stuff for them to know what the vision and the direction is. But the key thing that I'm hearing you say in all of this, and I'm going to be interested in to hear what your perspective is on this next question, but it's this whole notion that you have to give people the baton. And so often, because especially in that small to medium sized business, or even just any organization, the highest performers are the ones that have gotten to the top of the organization based off of their own engine and being able to execute and deliver at a high level, and to mobilize people in a certain way, that they believe that they are right and they know the answers to get to the outcome. And that might be true, but it only can scale to a certain degree, which is where and why you need to shift that paradigm to give the people that you've brought into the organization the accountability and the responsibility to continue to carry their role and backlog forward. And the reason why I say that, I heard this in another conversation that I had with someone a couple weeks ago. They said, if you delegate responsibility without authority, you have a bunch of glorified admin. And what I'm hearing you say is, by cascading that accountability and allowing them to own it, you're going to get much better outcomes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, if we go back to the word trust, right? Because I am asked this all the time. How do I trust X? How do I do, it's proven behavior over time. How do you date somebody? How do you know your child's going to school every day? They prove it by going to school every day, right? And if they're not going to school every day, they've now proven they're not accountable to get to school every day, right?
Yes.
So it's proven behavior over time. So allowing a executive member, we'll talk about that executive team, right? Going over success path, processes and procedures, evaluating the first 90 days, EQ evaluations, and so forth. Now you're slowly building those blocks of trust, right? Mm-hmm. Then you allow autonomy. That's why you hired them, so that you are now not working in your business, you are working on your business. That's when your business is going to scale and flourish, is when you're no longer doing 80-hour work weeks as the owner. That's crazy. And you're no longer wearing all four hats. You are not skilled at all four hats. I haven't met anybody that's skilled at all four hats, right? That's why we hire those four different, the CMO, CFO, COO. Right, so you're allowing autonomy. In autonomy, we are people. We are complicated. And occasionally, and I don't like to necessarily use the word fail. Occasionally we miss the mark. We don't meet the KPIs. We have an upset customer. That's just an opportunity. We don't even call it a challenge. We don't even call it a challenge in the tribe. Everything is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to look at the gaps in a system. It's an opportunity to look at ourselves. How did I show up in that situation? Sure. It's an opportunity to go to a client and say, guess what? I didn't give you the best service. I value you so much. Will you allow me another chance? And I have built long relationships out of challenges, opportunities, problems. So yes, allowing others autonomy after they've earned it, and then knowing that there's going to eventually be a problem, and standing beside them and helping them figure out the very best solution on a triple win, so everybody wins. It's pure joy to go to work. It's fun.
I love that notion, and I think the through line is lean in on the people, and the results will continue to show up. And I think that might be the answer to the next question I'm going to ask you. But let's see what your thoughts are. So if a founder shows up and they are burnt out, they're run down, they're just feeling like nothing is going their way, what's the feedback that you'd give them, or what question would you ask them to help them kind of see where their gaps and opportunities are?
Yeah. That happens, sadly enough, more often than not, is there's a lot of tears. They haven't had anybody to cry to. Who are they going to do that with? Their spouse, their attorney, their CPA, their executive team, a client? No, you're not going to do that. Are you kidding me? Right? So they'll come into my office and sit down. And sometimes some of the first things out of their body is anger, frustration, tears. Let me tell you. And I just listen and hold the space and know that they're just moving through an experience, right? So what I ask them when I've held them enough, not physically but emotionally, and they've brought their nervous system into regulation, what I will ask them is, what does self-care look like for you right now? What does self-respect look like? What does self-trust look like? Right? And many times, we'll spend 6 months, we might spend a year in the personal development side of a leader. And as it's so beautiful to watch, it's such a blessing. I feel so honored that these folks have let me in on their journey, right? And that is when I first sit with somebody, because the average member stays in the tribe 7 years. My average coaching client is even longer. There's a real relationship that develops, one of love. I love these folks. That's one of my purposes on the planet is love. And when somebody comes to me and they're a young business owner and I see that they're not confident, to see those building blocks start to line up through actions, their actions, okay, not mine. I'm beside them with compassion and empathy and resources and accountability and challenge and love and respect and all the things that a great coach is, right? But it's them that took the actions, that did the work. And so we will build, like when somebody, you said they come in, they're burned out, all that. I'm working 80 hours a week. I can't get it right. The market changed. There's now tariffs. The political environment isn't working for me, whatever it is.
Sure.
Let's sit down and talk about you first. Self-care, self-trust, self-respect. Are you willing to give yourself? I am working with a client right now who absolutely could not give himself 20 minutes in a day.
It's funny because I think anybody that's after it thinks that the key to getting the outcome that they're after is more energy and more effort. And energy and effort are an important input to the outcome. So I'm not saying don't work hard. I'm not saying don't chase it. But there's also an element of, and I don't know if this is a new age phenomenon or if it's just always been this way. Who knows? But I think the whole notion of don't like only focus on productivity and being in and investing the time is burning a lot of people out. And I think to all the listeners out there, even if it's 5 minutes, like 5 minutes to take a walk or to breathe or to disconnect, whatever that mechanism is, there is a return on investment. There's a compounding effect associated to that continues to be seen over time, and that could go either direction, right? If you're not investing it, there's a compounding effect of that. If you are investing, there's going to be a compounding effect to it. And so, I think one thing you said earlier, which I really appreciate, is build a path, identify what you need to get there, and then continue to invest in that on a consistent basis. And it doesn't have to be and I feel like all of us do this. I often do it with my running. I'm like, if I don't run 3 or 5 miles in a day, like it doesn't count as a run, or I didn't exercise. But even if you get out for a walk or go do one of these activities, that's a win towards the outcome. And so it could be just like you were saying, you have a couple things here and there that you took away from that retreat, 60-second exercises. Everybody has 60 seconds in their day. everybody has 5 minutes in their day. And anybody that says that they're too busy to actually take on some sort of self-care that's required to help create more stability and to address some of whatever frustrations that you're dealing with in life is lying to themselves. And I would challenge them to, this is a little bit direct, but I'll say it. I would challenge you to open up your iPhone or whatever device settings and look at what your screen time is. And I promise you that there's some time you could find where you're scrolling on one of these apps to invest in yourself. So I really appreciate the sentiment there.
And I would add, Blake, that one of my favorite questions, because I have an avatar that tends to attract to me, and that's a 40-year-old, right? 45. Mm-hmm. And they are in the throes, right, of hard charging, family, kids, career, social media, on, right? And I say to them, you wake up and you're this fine-tuned machines. You're in your prime. And you give all day long. Give, solve, put out fire, love the spouse, love all the kids, soccer game, soccer practice, I said, and by the end of the night, you have zero left because you've given. Mm-hmm. You've given. Good for you. Mm-hmm. Seriously. You're contributing to the planet. You have given. When are you filled up and how are you filled up? Where's your fuel? Is it in a workout a day? Is it in a loving conversation with somebody? Is it in affirmations? Is it in meditation? Is it in playing the guitar? Is it in holding your child? Is it in a nature walk? Is it in a scuba dive? Is it in wherever it is? Fill yourself back up. Because what you're doing is not sustainable. I am in my final and third 30 years of life. I am. Mm-hmm. And I figured out very young, believe me, I've lived 9 lives. I have packed more into my life than is reasonable. And it's not sustainable without self-care, self-trust, self-love, self-respect, and filling your own cup every day.
It's funny. I've experimented with different activities throughout my own life, and there's a lot of stuff you see on the internet, or whether it's like doing journaling or doing affirmations or doing like all different things. And what I've come across in my own experience is there was a period of time where I was doing all these things, and I'm like, well, you're getting stressed out about not doing the things that are supposed to be filling a cup. And so what I would say is experiment on the thing, experiment on self-care. And if you don't like something, don't do it. Like, do the thing that is actually going to fill up your cup. And to your point, that is different for every single person. But if you're not investing, going back to the whole give, and lowering the tank at the end of every single day, if there isn't a way to recharge, at some point that car or that battery is going to break down. And that's what so many people experience when they're not leaning in. So I really appreciate that sentiment. I'm interested. We've spoken a lot about your experience and how you influence different people across different organizations. What advice would you give to yourself if you're going back 10, 15, 20 years based off everything you know today? What advice would you give to your past self?
Oh my gosh. I've kind of lived by this. Live like every day is your last. Seriously. So I have 3 rules to do that, to live like every day is my last. Always show up. And if that means physically, emotionally, right, be present, be aware, show up. If you're going to be there, give that person your time, give that activity your time, your attention, be intentional, right? So always show up, right? Always upgrade. It's like my favorite one to talk about. And what that means, people think it's like, well, I'll go from this to a Ferrari. And I'm like, that's good. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. How about upgrade your workouts? How about upgrade your nature walks? How about upgrade your scuba diving? How about upgrade your mindset?
Sure.
Right? Instead of using the term right and wrong, use what's working and not working. That's an upgrade. Just learning that changed my life, right? And the third rule is get over it.
I love that. Let go.
At the end of the day, and I ask myself this all the time, does it really matter? At the end of the day, whatever that it is that we may be ruminating on, stuck on, it's a block, oh, he did this, she did that, da 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 da. Get over it. I mean, there's life to live.
And it goes back to that notion that if it is your last day, the thing that you're frustrated, stressing out about, etc., probably won't matter when you're gone. So let it go, because it actually is creating more angst than necessary.
Right.
One other question for you. What are you most excited about looking into the future?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. What a great question, because this I have given so much thought, right? I am excited about this next 30 years, planning to live from now 63 to 93, because I do believe we can create anything we want. And my final chapter, my third, is to every single person I meet, to see their greatness and to let them know, to actually say it to them. I just did this yesterday to someone who I'd never met, and it was on a video call here. And I said, how can I help you? How can I help you with anything? Because this woman gave me so much of her in less than an hour. So I was mentored by her and inspired by her greatness. And, vice versa. She said to me, oh my gosh, all I want is to have some coffee with you. And I said, absolutely. Here's all my contact information. Reach out. Now, very interesting. I would love to end on this note. Is I had an MRI yesterday, which, by the way, I did a total mindset shift and acted like it was a sound bath and dug all those vibrations and loud noises, and it was crazy good, because I just did a mind shift that this is going to be a great experience, and it was. In the lobby was this magnificent big book of photography. And it had these soul sayings, like, whatever, right? The deep dive into the soul and all the, don't stay on the surface, all this great stuff. So I emailed the author.
No way.
The email was on there. So I emailed the author and I say, hey, I just had an MRI. I saw your book. I'd love to buy it. Where do I find it? Bam, emails me back and says, I donated that project to the Brain Center. You should be able to contact the Brain Center and get one. And I was like, I can't believe this guy just emailed me. That was so nice of him. And he called me friend. He called me friend and all this. So I quickly Google him. He's like this huge artist with galleries, around the world. And I thought to myself, this is connection. Because then he followed up when I said, I contacted the Brain Center. They don't have any. Well, I have some in my collection. I would love to get you one. Hey, and we're having a private event at my home for our gallery. Would you like an invitation? And I'm like, all this from just reaching out. Just reaching out and admiring somebody.
It's beautiful, that last piece specifically around the technology, the infrastructure now is more available than ever to facilitate and broker connection. Now, whether people are feeling more connected is a whole different conversation. But I appreciate your push for all of us to lean in on the people, lean in on connection, because all the infrastructure that is there. We just have to make the decision on making that investment. Angelina, this has been a spectacular conversation. It's been so great to learn from you over the last hour or so. And I know so many of our listeners are going to appreciate not only some of the high level details you shared, but also some of the tactical things that they could take back with their teams. So thank you so much for joining the Scaling Paradox, and hope to have you on again in the future.
Absolutely. And Blake, I'm inspired by you. And hello to all the listeners. Stay with Blake. He has a lot to offer. You could see it and feel it and know it.
Appreciate that. We'll chat soon.
Take care.
That's it for this episode of the Scaling Paradox. If this helped cut through the chaos, please send it to another founder or operator that's stuck in it too. If you haven't subscribed yet, let's fix that. New episodes of the Scaling Paradox drop every other Thursday. There's no filler in this podcast, just the real work of scaling past yourself.